How many of you listened to parts 2 through 6 of the lecture? Raise your hand if you listened to parts 2 through 6 of the lecture. Okay, thank you for your hands. And on activity 13, in activity 13, listening for main ideas, you needed to catch the main idea of each part, right? Now, there are 6 sentences. There are 6 sentences here, right? So these 6 sentences, 5 of them, because we have 6 parts. We have 6 parts. We already did part 1, so we're looking at part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5, and part 6. So there's 5 parts left, and we have 6 sentences. So one of them is extra. One of them is not necessary. So let me just read those statements, and why don't you raise your hand if you heard this topic in parts 2 through 6. Just raise your hand. You don't have to identify. Just tell me whether you heard this topic. Americans don't get enough sleep. Raise your hand if you heard the lecturer talk about that. Okay. Sleep debt accumulates. Did you hear it? If you heard it, raise your hand. I want to see. Can I see your hand? Your hand if you heard that? Okay. Get up, walk around, and go get a drink of water. Did you hear that? Okay. Sleep debt is created when your body needs sleep. Did you hear that? Okay. Drowsiness causes accidents. You heard that? People do not realize that they are sleepy. Did you hear that? Okay. So you heard all of them, right? But are all of them main ideas? No, one of them not a main idea. Which one is a little detail? Which one's a little detail? Get up, walk around, and go get a drink of water. That's not related to the topic of sleep debt, right? It's not related. It's related to what the actions the students should do in class. Now the trick here, the task here is to identify which part 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, which part of the lecture matches each of the topics. So tell me, what did the lecturer talk about in part 2? What did the lecturer talk about in part 2? Sleep debt is created when your body needs sleep. Okay, what did she talk about in part 3 of the lecture? Americans don't get enough sleep. What did she talk about in part 4 of the lecture? Sleep debt accumulates. What did the lecturer talk about in part 5 of the lecture? Drowsiness causes accidents. And what did she talk about in part 6? People do not realize that they are sleepy. Okay, now, if you are able to get all of those, that's great, because you got the main idea of each of those aspects. Any questions?